Hello and welcome back to Sandra is Booked. So today, as you can see by the title of this video, we have 30 books that I want to read in the fall time. So we're gonna try to go through these books quickly, tell you briefly what they're about and why I want to read them during the fall. Why do they ascribe to fall aesthetics? What do I plan to film with these books? And yeah, the purpose of this video is just to be ready for fall, to give you some recommendation of fall books, show you what kind of fall books that I'm into, that I'm going to read. So we have mystery, we have some that are contemporary, we have some thriller, we have some dark academia. We have basically a mixture of a little bit of everything and a little bit of everywhere. For the sake of this video, I did not include any of the non-fiction that I want to read this fall time, so all of these books are basically fiction. So let's get into it. I'm just going to start moving the stacks out of the way because I feel like I'm being crowded a little bit over here. Second stack. So the first book I had to bring up is Babel by R.F. Kuang because it's obviously the most anticipated book of this fall. Honestly, it's so hyped right now, but it's actually getting only good hype, so I'm really happy and excited about that. In this dark academic setting in Oxford, we have students that are basically translators, and that's how they basically weave magic, I believe, and it's through translation. However, the main character is faced with a hard decision because in entering a secret society, he actually goes against the school's policy because the school's purpose is basically to dominate other countries, especially China. The main character is faced with a complicated choice. By following this translation pursuit, this Chinese main character is going against his motherland, and so if he joins this secret society, maybe they stand a chance against this colonization. Really like that the concept of this one is using translation and the act of words and the power of words and translation, and losing and gaining power through population, through colonizing through language. And I think this one is really interesting, and I'm also a translator, so I think this one's gonna hit a little bit home. I translate from English to French. If you ever need translation services, my Fiverr is always linked in the description of this video. So anyways, enough about that, but I can't wait to see this fresh new take on dark academia. I'm briefly gonna go through books that I'm already currently in the middle of and I just want to finish in this fall time, and that have a little bit of a fall atmosphere or fall spirit to them. So the first one is Stephen King's Misery. I think everyone has heard of this book, heard of the movie, and everyone who reads Stephen King has read this one. Apparently it's one of his best, if not the best, Stephen King novel out there. Basically, Misery follows this famous writer, Paul Sheldon, and he gets into this freak show accident in the middle of the winter, and his number one fan to his number one book series is the one caretaking for him, but things are not as they seem, as this number one fan is a supreme extreme fan, and she basically keeps him in her house drugged up, and I think she will be forcing him to write a satisfying end to a series that she's loved and she is the number one super fan of. So I'm not that far into it, but so far it's been so eerie and so chilling to read, and it's very gripping. I understand why people like this one, and maybe it's the fact that it's a shorter novel that packs a punch. So maybe his other books are just too convoluted compared to this one, because this one really starts into the action and there's not that much going on, but it's already very intense with the emotional side. So yes, I can't wait to finish this finally and probably watch the movie afterwards. Then we have A Little Life by Hana Yanagihara, and honestly I haven't finished this because it's just so rough to read. I'm almost at the 200 page mark, and this book is 800 pages long. It is a sad book, it is an intense book. We follow these four boys as they navigate the world, and they navigate school, they navigate what they want to do with their lives, navigate past traumas, and we especially follow Jude, who is I think more like the main protagonist, and he has a very intense and hidden history and that's where I think that the title of the book comes into place. So far it's already been really hard to read, and I'm not even halfway through. I'm like about a quarter in, so I can't imagine the roller coaster that this is gonna put me through. But I think because it has a bit of an academic setting, that it's the perfect time to read it in the beginning of the fall time. So now I have two other dark academia books. I have Sleepwalking by Meg Wolitzer, and I have Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. So Sleepwalking I started, and Catherine House as well. I'm about a quarter in both of these novels. Sleepwalking follows three girls that form an alliance in university. They are called the Dead Girls because each and one of them are focused on a poet that has passed away by suicide. So we have Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton, and a third poet, which is a creation from Meg Wolitzer herself, and it's Lucy Asher. So the third girl is obsessed with Lucy Asher. And then yeah, we basically follow these three girls in their obsession, in, you know, their enticement towards these dead poets, dead female poets. And I think this book might offer a lot of exploration on different topics such as like suicide, mental illness, poetry, as well as like women's place in the literary world. So I can't wait to continue this and actually formulate more thoughts on this one. As for Catherine House, we follow Inez, who has a dark history, dark past in high school, and Catherine House turns out to be her only escape plan. This house, the Catherine House, people have their own focus study, and they're kind of like cut off from the world for about three years or something until they specialize. It's kind of supposed to be like this revolutionary form of teaching and growing a student's character and interest in the topics that they learn of. And I think there's something more at play. Especially at the part that I got to, there's like this special intellectual discipline that only some students get selected into. It's very hush-hush. It's a little bit cult-ish. And so I think this main character is about to uncover more secret that happened at Catherine House. Then we have The Dangers of Smoking in Bed by Mariana Enriquez, sorry about that. And this is a short story collection. I think I read about 2 of the short story collections and really enjoyed them. I read her other collection, the one that came before this, and I know she has a novel that is finally being translated in English coming out this fall, so I want to read that one as well. But I'm gonna first finish this one because she's a writer that sets her stories in Buenos Aires, and it's usually always so gripping, and it has to do with the political landscape and mixed with like the macabre. So honestly, highly recommend if you really like dark, gritty stories. And finally, the last book that I'm in the middle of, and it's actually a poetry book. It's Emily Dickinson's, and it's the Final Harvest collection. And I think there's something to do with Emily Dickinson that really reminds me of fall and the fall aesthetic. I just really want to finish this because I really love Emily Dickinson. I studied her a lot in my undergrad days and in my poetry classes. So yes, I can't wait to read this one during the fall time. And we're gonna continue with more unhinged books. So first I have American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. I've never read American Psycho, and I've never fully watched the movie, so I've been waiting to read the book before watching the movie. So I think this is my chance to read it, to actually read the book and to watch the movie. And it has to do with like, you know, this American Psycho, Patrick Bateman, and how he murders and sexualizes women, I believe, and he's essentially a psychopath. So yes, I really want to read this so I can be part of the conversation, be part of the literary moment. I feel like people that haven't read this one oftentimes feel left out, like especially because there's so much media circulating around this book and movie every year. So can't wait to finally be part of the joke, or like the non-joke, because it's not really funny, right? So more unhingedness, we have My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. Honestly, have not read any Ottessa Moshfegh so far. I don't know how, I don't know why it's taking me this long, but I think I want to start with this one because it's about a woman in her early 20s, I believe, that like basically just graduated but doesn't really know what to do with her life, but she is, you know, still well off. And so what she does is she she basically rests for a year by taking all these sleeping pills, and it's an exploration on mental illness. And I don't know, I think it's gonna be fascinating to read about. I think it's gonna be the perfect season to read it in. I really enjoy reading slow novels but with like deep character studies during the fall, so this is one I'm really gravitating towards. Then we have my Dark Vanessa by Elizabeth Russell, and honestly I've not read this one and I feel like I'm so behind compared to everyone else. And I think it does kind of set in an academic setting because this girl, her old professor or her old teacher is being accused of sexual harassment, and so she is revisiting her own memories of that time where she was in school and where she had an intimate relationship with her teacher. So yeah, I think it's a perfect fall time to read this, and I just really want to know what happens in this novel. I feel like this is one of those very impactful novels that everyone has read so far, and I'm out of the conversation again, so exactly like the last two books that I presented, so I really want to read this in the fall time. Then I have like 3 novels that are like kind of like romance thrillers because they're like toxic relationship, what the hell is happening, the man is probably lying, the man is probably a piece of work, instead of saying a piece of shit. Let's just go quickly through these books. So first I have Verity by Colleen Hoover, apparently one of the greatest books by her, especially because it's very different from her normal book. So I believe this struggling writer goes into this family home where the wife has suffered a tragic accident, and the wife was a writer. So basically the main character becomes the ghost writer for this wife that is in critical condition, or she's dead. And I think the wife's name is Verity. Our main character apparently uncovers the manuscript of the wife, and she has to hide it from the husband. So there's something going on in the house, or there's something going on with the family and the husband. So as she is writing this unfinished autobiography, things start to unravel as she discovers new things that maybe she should not have discovered about this family. Then we have Tell Me Lies by Carola Lovering. I've had this book for like years on my shelf and I've always wanted to read it, especially in the fall time. I think it has to do with some kind of toxic relationship. There's a show that's been adapted now from this book, and I'm just gonna read the blurb because I'm not too sure what happened. So it says, Lucy Albright is far from home when she arrives on the campus of her small California college, and happy to be hundreds of miles from her self-involved mother. Quickly grasping at a fresh start, she embraces college life and all it has to offer: new friends, wild parties, stimulating classes. And then she meets Stephen DeMarco, charming, attractive, complicated, devastating. Confident and cocksure, Stephen sees something in Lucy that no one else has, and she's quickly seduced by the vision of herself and the sense of possibility that his intention brings her. Meanwhile, Stephen is determined to forget an incident buried in his past that, if exposed, could ruin him, and his single-minded drive for success extends to winning and keeping Lucy's heart. Lucy knows there's something about Stephen that isn't to be trusted. Stephen knows Lucy can't tear herself away, and their addicting entanglement will have consequences they never could have imagined. So yeah, it sounds like a typical toxic relationship, and I'm all here for it. Then we have You Love Me by Caroline Kepnes. I'm not gonna go into the blurb of this one because it would be too spoilery, but it's basically the third book in the You series by Caroline Kepnes, the same You that has been adapted for the Netflix TV show. Funny enough, the second book and the second season has been wildly different. I did watch this third season, but I have not read the third book, so I want to get onto this before they start releasing the fourth season. I would like to see the similarities and the differences between the third book and the third season. Okay, so switching out of the horror thriller aspect, I have two books that are set in autumn. They're kind of autobiographical novels, or they have some biographical feels to them. So we have Autumn by Carl O. Knausgaard, and we have Autumn by Ali Smith. And basically these two authors have a whole 4 seasonal catrette to this series. And yeah, I just wanted to start this and, you know, see if this corresponds with the season itself, or it's just, I don't know, I have no idea, no expectations going into these, except that I really like the concept of having a book set in autumn, then winter, spring, and summer. And it's interesting to me that both of these authors have started their series in autumn, so I'm going to read this probably back to back in a reading vlog. Then I want to read Mona by Paula Oliaksarak, and it's basically this really short book about a writer, and she's basically going to this type of writer's retreat in Sweden, and in this retreat there are a lot of people from across the world, especially apparently it says here, her male competitors, who are all jet lag, and they come from Japan, France, Armenia, Iran, and Colombia. And it says here, isolated as they are, the writers do what writers do: exchange compliments, nurse envy and private resentment, stab rivals in the back, and hop in bed together. All the while, Mona keeps stumbling across the mysterious traces of a violence she cannot explain. So yeah, I think there's some kind of mystery, rivalry, and it deals with writers across the world, so that is very interesting, and it's something definitely up my alley. Then we have Lady Oracle by Margaret Atwood, because obviously Margaret Atwood is my mom and I need to read her every fall time. It says here that it follows a shy, awkward wife of a perpetual radical. John Foster is a formerly obese woman whose delicate equilibrium is threatened by the fact that the several lives she has lived separately and secretly are coming together and will be exposed. She is newly and notoriously famous as a best-selling author. She writes gothic novels under a nom de plume. She is having a hidden affair. Love, fear, understanding, suspense, sensuality, and humor. There's hardly an emotional current that is not touched in Lady Oracle. Now I remember why I wanted to read this in the fall time is because the protagonist herself is writing gothic literature, and gothic literature is perfect for the fall time. So a lot of the next books that we're going to go to are actually set in a gothic setting or have gothic themes to them. So yes, definitely have to read some gothic literature in the fall time. So first we have The Infernal Desire Machines of Dr. Hoffman by Angela Carter, and this one seems like it's a crazy story where women are being kind of exploited in this type of machine. I'm just gonna read you the blurb because when I heard it the other day I was like, oh, I really want to read this one in the fall time. It says the transformation of Desiderio's city into a mysterious kingdom is instantaneous. Hallucination flows with magical speed in every brain, and the evil comes too as imaginary massacres fill the street with blood. The dead return to question the living, and profound anxiety drives hundreds to suicide. So yeah, I think it's this kind of machine that allows desires and the craziest of men's dreams to come true, so such as committing these forbidden acts on women. And obviously Angela Carter is a woman and she has dabbled with the gothic, and her stories are always filled with some kind of like magical realism, from what I've heard, but also something deeper like societal commentary at play. So I can't wait to read this. This would be my first Angela Carter novel. Then we have The Haunting of Hill House. This is definitely a gothic novel and it's by Shirley Jackson, and it's basically this group of people that go to Hill House, and there are some crazy shit happening at Hill House. Let me just give you a quick synopsis of the cast of character that we find at Hill House. There's Dr. Montague, an occult scholar looking for solid evidence of psychic phenomena; Theodora, his lovely and light-hearted assistant; Luke, the adventurous future inheritor of the estate; and Eleanor, a friendless, fragile young woman with a dark past. As they begin to cope with chilling, even horrifying occurrences beyond their control or understanding, they cannot possibly know what lies ahead. For Hill House is gathering its power, and soon it will choose one of them to make its own. So this sounds so cool. I really can't wait to read this. I've read some of Shirley Jackson's short stories before, but I've never read her actual novels, so can't wait to start with this one and then pick up the other one, which is We Have Always Lived in the Castle. So yeah. So continuing on with gothic classics, or just classics in general, I have Villette by Charlotte Bronte, and it's basically about this school teacher, and it says here that Lucy Snow is a young woman alone in the world, running from a dark past with no home, no family, no prospects. Lucy trades her English homeland for the French-speaking city of Villette. She finds work at a boarding school for girls where she encounters both intrigue and isolation. When a handsome man from her past appears in Villette, Lucy believes she might at least be free of loneliness if her rigorous self-control doesn't thwart her true hopes. Based on Charlotte Bronte's own experiences at a boarding school in Belgium, Violet is an intense psychological portrait of its heroine, a woman who so strenuously tries to hide her passions that she cannot help but reveal them. So yes, I like that it's set in a boarding school, very fall vibes, and I can't wait to see if this is gonna be a romance or a tragedy or both. Because I read Wuthering Heights and I loved that novel last fall, so can't wait to continue with some Bronte sisters this fall. And so that's why I think it's time for me to finally read Jane Eyre. I don't know how I've managed to escape Jane Eyre before, but again, it's still by Charlotte Bronte, and this follows a heroine called Jane, and she is a plain and plain-speaking orphan whose determination, good nature, and spirit see her through a series of personal ordeals from an early age. When she takes up a position as a governess at Thornfield Hall to teach 8-year-old Adele, she is resigned to an uneventful career. But when the moody, charismatic owner of Thornfield, Edward Rochester, makes a rare visit to the hall, and Jane's impassioned self-respect and moral conviction are tested to a breaking point. So yeah, I think I know more or less some of what's going on in this book, but I try to avoid spoilers. I know one of the main big spoiler, but it still doesn't make up for the fact of reading the actual classic novel itself. So can't wait to read this one. And in a similar tone, I got this book, which is basically, I think, some kind of retelling of Jane Eyre, and it's called The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. It's again about a woman going to a hall and things start to happen, and this one here, the woman marries this man, and the agreement between her and the man is that she doesn't go to his family home, or she doesn't investigate his family life or something like that. Something happens where she is forced to go to his family home and see him there, and things start to change and things start to become horrifying and whatnot. So I can't wait to see if there's gonna be some discovery, and why does this man want to keep his new wife from far away from his family home. Then I want to read A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, and I guess you could say this is the only piece of non-fiction in here, and it's because it's based on a lecture that she's given at Girton College, Cambridge, and is one of the greatest feminist polemics, ranging in its themes from Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte to the silent fate of Shakespeare's gifted imaginary sister and the effects of poverty and sexual constraint on female creativity. So yeah, I think like fall time is always the best time for me to get my novels started, and I really like Virginia Woolf. So instead of reading some of her fiction this fall, I want to read A Room of One's Own, because I think this will inspire me and will understand the great luck that I have to be a woman in our current age, because although there's a lot to reproach in our age and time, I think that publishing has been more favorable, at least in the last recent years, towards women as well, not just men. So it's very important to talk about these issues, to know about these issues, and to know about the writers, the great writers that have and have not came to in society. And I think Virginia Woolf will be exploring that in A Room of One's Own, so I think it's very important for me to read that finally. Then quickly we have Transformations by Anne Sexton. It's basically a poetry collection, and I want to read it because obviously I'm reading Sleepwalking, so I wanted to read some more Anne Sexton, and yeah, that's it. Pretty straightforward. Then we have the Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, obviously a BookTok favorite. I have one of the old copies because it was the ones that were self-published. Now they don't make these anymore, so I'm glad I got it when I had the chance. And this book basically is a dark academia. It follows the Alexandrian Society, caretakers of lost knowledge from the greatest civilizations of antiquity, are the foremost secret society of magical academians in the world. Those who earn a place among the Alexandrians will secure a life of wealth, power, and prestige beyond their wildest dreams, and each decade only the 6 more uniquely talented magicians are selected to be considered for initiation. Basically, this novel follows 6 initiates in the Alexandrian Society, and we get to see their journey and get to see who is going to be making it and who is not, I believe. So can't wait to read this and see what all the hype is about. I also really want to read this fall time Night House by Leigh Bardugo, and it's the first book in a long series that is again set in a academic setting. And here it's Alex Stern is the most unlikely member of Yale's freshman class. Raised in LA by a hippie mom, Alex dropped out of school early and into a world of shady drug dealer boyfriends, dead-end jobs, and much worse. In fact, by age 20, she is the sole survivor of a horrific unresolved multiple homicide. Some might say she's thrown her life away, but at her hospital bedside, Alex is offered a second chance to attend one of the world's most prestigious university on a full ride. What's the catch and why her? Still searching for answer, Alex arrives in New Haven, tasked by her mysterious benefactors with monitoring the activities of Yale's secret societies. Their 8 windowless homes are the well-known haunts of the rich and powerful, from high-ranking politicos to Wall Street's biggest players, but their occult activities are more sinister and more extraordinary than any paranoid imagination might conceive. They tamper with forbidden magic, they raise the dead, and sometimes they prey on the living. So yeah, I can't wait to read this, especially I want to read it before the second book is coming out, and I think the second book is coming out fairly soon now. I'm really one of the last people to read Night House and The Atlas Six, but I'm going to change that this fall. Another book that I really want to read is Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin. So I started the Game of Thrones series, but I only got to almost the end of the second novel, and I don't want to read the third, fourth, and fifth before getting into the prequel. So I'm going to read this because I'm going to read this while watching the TV series alongside and share my thoughts and opinions when the last episode airs. So basically, I think everyone knows more or less the plot of the first Game of Thrones series. I'm not gonna go into it, but this is a prequel, so I think it's about 500 years or something before the events at Game of Thrones. So we actually follow the Targaryens, the family Targaryens in Westeros when they were powerful and whatnot. So can't wait to read this, and actually can't wait to continue the rest of the Game of Thrones series too at some point. And the last and final book that I have here is When We Lost Our Heads by Heather O'Neill, Montreal-born Canadian writer, and I am going to see her at Toronto's Authors Festival this fall, so I really want to read her book before I hear her speak about her book. And this book sounds so fucking good. I need to read you the blurb. It says, Marie-Antoine is the charismatic, spoiled daughter of a sugar baron. At age 12, she's the leader of all the children in the Golden Mile, the affluent strip of 19th century Montreal where powerful families live, until one day in 1873 when Sadie Arnett, sly and brilliant, moves to the neighborhood. Mary and Sadie are immediately inseparable. United by their passion and intensity, they attract and repel each other in ways that set them both on fire. After a childlike game becomes deadly, the girls are forced to separate until a singular event unites them as young women with devastating effects. After Mary inherits her father's sugar empire and Sadie disappears into the city's gritty underworld, the working class begins to foment a revolution. Each woman will play an unexpected role in the events that upend their city. The only question is whether they will find each other once more. When We Lost Our Heads is a page-turning novel that explores gender and power, sex and desire, class and status, and the terrifying trait of the human heart when it can't let someone go. And I think the wordplay between Marie-Antoine is and When We Lost Our Heads is probably have to do with something with Marie Antoinette, the actual, historical figure, but I will let you know what I think as I go along, and I can't wait to finally read this, and I'm really hoping that it is some kind of queer love story, but we'll see if that ends up happening. Maybe it's just a very intense friendship. Who knows? We'll see. And I can't wait to share my impressions as I'm gonna go see Heather O'Neill live and hear what she has to say. And also, now that I'm here and sharing this, I'm also gonna see Margaret Atwood again. Obviously, my mom, it's always a great pleasure to see her. She's very busy, she's very booked and busy, running the literary world as she does all the time, slaying. So can't wait to have all that excitement in one singular day at the Toronto Authors Festival. And yeah, I never knew this existed for some reason, so this is my first year and I am so thrilled, and I'm gonna start going every single year, and hopefully one year I'm gonna be part of that listing. who knows, fingers crossed. If I do, you guys see me here first, you know. Anyways, let's just stop with that ramble. And I almost forgot that the 30th and last book that I want to read this fall is the Dubliners series by Tana French, and I started with the first book, which is Into the Woods. I'm going to insert an image here. I have not bought a copy because I'm not going to spend $25 for a book. I'm just going to wait and like request it later on for Christmas or something, because I'm just gonna read it on my e-reader for now. But I do have the rest of the series. Let me just hold that up. So here's the rest of the series. So it's a very long series. It's like 6 books long so far, I believe, and there is a show associated with it, and I really can't wait to get to the second book, because the second book has an academic setting, and I believe the 4th or the 5th book also has an academic setting. And I do believe we follow kind of a linearity between the main characters, but anything else I don't really know. And I just know that 2 of the books in the series are Dark Academia, so that's why I wanted to start them, so I can get to the second book at least, maybe this fall as well. So yeah, that's the 30 books that I want to read this fall. Okay guys, so we made it through. That was the end of my fall TBR. 30 books. This is why I don't make TBR videos, because they're very much ambitious, and if I do manage reading 30 books this fall, I would be so surprised. But I think that's like not even possible at this point with how busy my life is, because that would be like a book every 3rd day. Plus I read other books that are not in this stack, so non-fiction books, and I read a lot of those as well. So we'll see, fingers crossed. At least if I can read half of these or 3/4 of these, I'd be really happy. But I'm going to shoot for the moon and the stars, because I am oblivious to my own powers of procrastination. So yeah, if you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. I would love to have you here. All readers and non-readers are more than welcome on my channel. My goal here is to inspire you to read more and to help you find your next favorite book. If I do that, I'll be more than happy. And if I do that, please let me know, because it will fill my day with joy. So yeah, as always, everything mentioned, all the books mentioned are gonna be linked down below. All my links are linked down below. If you want to see writing content, if you want to see mental health content, all is linked down below. Everywhere is linked down below. Everything is linked, basically, always, at all times. And yeah, please feel free to share what you want to read this fall time. What are some books on your fall TBR? Are there some more recent books, some more older books? Are there some books that you've been waiting to read for fall for many years, and you're like, this fall is the fall that I'm gonna read these books? And similarly, what are some of your favorite fall books? What are some of your favorite fall activities, movies, shows? Just feel free to share. I love fall. I love Dark Academia. I love everything about fall. I love the going back to school season. Just fall is amazing. If we could have fall like all year long, I'd be really happy. But I know that life is not like that, so unfortunately. But yeah, so for now, I'm going to head out. I'm going to read this book, and I'll see you on the next book video. Bye!